this up for questions in just a second, because I have one more question, and for you guys, you prepared a long answer. I want you to list your answer for this one. You know, just give us a couple of points. We've obviously, pretty much everybody has said that we need reforms in our process, so no one's saying it's good as is and we should keep it the same. So what can the average person do to get involved with making these changes in the processes or systems? And again, just list them. Don't, you know, no explanation behind them. If you guys want explanation behind them, we'll make sure that you can get that information. becomingpeople.org. I'm trying to post something that, you know, you guys can reference to there, and I'll have these guys send me some things, and we'll post them on the site and links to their site so that you can get more information on that. But just for the sake of this, let's just list the answers. So I will start next time.
We'll keep it short and sweet. The biggest thing that we can do is inform our coworkers, our neighbors, our families, and friends to be registered to vote and be ready to vote. And that means in many states now having an identification that matches your registration. I don't hold a lot of belief that the voter ID thing is A, a solution, or B, a strong impediment. Here in the city of Chicago, we have had early voting. We've had, just in the presidential election, last presidential election, we had 260,000 early voters. We received not one complaint that during early voting you have to show identification. Because here in the city of Chicago, just to get through your day-to-day life, you have to have identification. People carry it. So I don't believe it's a big deterrent. I also don't believe it's a big security promise. It doesn't bring a lot of hope that there's going to be a lot more integrity at the polling place. Because A, there isn't any kind of proven problem, somebody else referenced that, of perpetual fraud going on. And B, in our neighboring state where they require voter ID, the head of the elections of the entire state, Charlie White, was convicted for voter fraud after he had an ID and a registration at the wrong address. So the ID in and of itself is not some kind of panacea. And I also find it fascinating that some of the same people who were fearful of a national ID when it was during the healthcare debate now believe in a national ID or some kind of national ID program for voting, which is even more basic in terms of your rights under the Constitution than the notion of healthcare. But real quickly, matching ID with your registration, my biggest concern is that women are the most likely to change their name at some point in their life, and they may be Smith-Jones on one form and just simply Smith or Jones on the other form. And that's the concern I have about voter ID. So inform your friends, neighbors, everybody that you know, to get your registration squared ahead of the election and to get the matching ID.
We need to drastically change the system and improve it. In order to do that, we need to educate the voters about the need to get real people elected. Those who are representatives of money and power, but are the ones who are now getting elected, but we need to get the people in office. One of the ways I think to do this, I would have talked more about it, but it was mentioned before, there is an equal time provision in our media that you were supposed to, like in the prime time, have all candidates have 5 minutes to say who they are and what they vote in. I think we need to restore that. We have to consider, and this is it right here, we all have to consider, everyone in this room needs to think about running for election. Because if you don't run for election, the bad guys will. So how are we going to get real people elected is if you run. So if you're interested in running, talk to me after the meeting. I have lots of information. We have petitions. We can give you petitions for Jill Stein. In the meantime, vote for MWRD, Metropolitan Water Reclamation District, because we have candidates running there, 3 of them. They'll make a difference. I have so much to say about that. And Nancy Wager's running in the 5th Congressional District. And if you would like to get Jill Stein on the ballot, as I said, talk to me after the meeting.
Okay, I obviously believe that coming from Chicago and being a Democrat, small d, that you should vote early and often, so I urge everyone to do that every time there's an election. However, I'd also like to remind you what the Europeans say, and that is that Americans don't have politics, they have elections. And so I would urge people to not think that your political, civic, and moral duty ends after you cast the ballot, you can now go to sleep for another couple of years. I think people should get involved in whatever social movements, political movements, neighborhood committees they can in between elections, and not just wait for another election to roll around.
It was so interesting to be able to say it once. I'm going to say it again. I agree with my socialist friend here on the panel. Elections are not ends in and of themselves. Elections are means to policy ends. So in that sense, we often hear the cry, and from people even within my own Tea Party organization, I hear it all the time. We have to throw all the bombs out. My dislike for the vast majority of the U.S. House of Representatives and the Senate and most of the legislature here in Illinois notwithstanding, it would be nice, it would be great if we could have the quote-unquote right people in there. That's not the way that you go about getting actual change. The way you go about getting actual change is by making it politically profitable for the wrong people to do the right thing. And that is inherent within us to make it a system that rewards people. Even if politicians are in a business, they're in a business of getting elected. If we make it a system where it is profitable for them to do truly what we want, not what is necessarily in their interest, that's how you're going to achieve change, not by the silver bullet idea that if we just throw all the people out, replace them with a whole bunch of new people, everything will be better. Probably won't be.
I'm not sure I have a simple solution. I'm pretty sure I'm maybe out of solutions at this point in my life. But I think that what I try to encourage those students who come to me to ask about this sort of thing is for them to get active locally. Going after the House and the Senate and the President is a pretty big task. Get involved in a community group, get involved in, I understand that the President got started as a community organizer. Get involved in the local community. There are experiments going on in various parts of the country about participatory budgeting and having people involved in making budget decisions at the local level. Local school boards are, you would ask whether anybody, I did run for office. In fact, I was elected in a landslide because I was unopposed as a candidate for a local school board in the community where we live. And I spent 6 years on that board, and I thought it was one of the best things I did civically, and I think I made a difference there. If people think that the only way they can make change is to start working on presidential campaigns or senatorial campaigns, discourage people from doing that. I think that focuses too much on the election part. Get people involved locally, and I think that they may build into something more important after that.
My advice would be to, whatever level of government you're interested in, federal, state, local, if you can put your efforts into, when I say efforts, I'm talking about financial resources, your volunteer efforts, into supporting candidates who are viable candidates. I guess, my third-party candidates are not going to like that, but I would say viable candidates in contested elections. I mean, where your efforts could make a difference, the outcome, then you're most likely to have, some impact on the result. I think if you, like, for example, if I'm going to be a volunteer in a presidential election, I will not do so in Illinois, because it's generally low for one candidate. Like in 2004, I was a volunteer in Wisconsin, 2008 in Indiana, and it's because I'm going to put my efforts where I think it's a close election, and I would never put my efforts in any race that I thought was not seriously contested. And that's the same with my money. If I'm going to donate to candidates, and I do donate to probably 18 or 20 candidates every election cycle, but I'm going to put my money where I think it's a totally close election, and I don't do it otherwise.
All right, thank you, everyone. Instead of having, keeping everyone here later, if you guys, if any of you have to run right now, feel free to do so. If not, then if you could stay around for a few minutes and people can just come up and ask questions, You can ask questions, of the whole panel, or particularly to one person or the other, because we are running over a little bit. But I want to, before we do that, I want to thank you guys so much for being here and being a part of the panel. You guys gave some really excellent information. And thanks. Let's give them a...
Was it a coincidence that he's on our far right and he's on our...
It was actually. It was a coincidence.
No,
They chose their own seats.
Yeah, I chose this.
But from this angle, this is the right.
That's the problem with the Greens, not a lot of political clarity on certain issues.
Strike that in the camera.
I'm voting for you anyway.